Welcome back. The Supreme Court of Canada has agreed to hear an appeal in the case of an Ontario trucker who was acquitted in the death of an Indigenous woman, Cindy Gladue, in an Edmonton hotel room. Joining us now to discuss is award-winning investigative reporter Melissa Ridgen, who did an APTN Investigates documentary on Cindy's story. Melissa, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit on how this case has ended up in the Supreme Court?
Yeah, well, so the jury acquitted Bradley Barton in the death of Cindy Gladue, and right away the Crown had appealed, saying that they felt that there was errors within the trial. The Alberta Court of Appeal had this for, I think it was almost a year that they mulled. There was a 3-judge panel, and they came back with an 80-page report outlining that there would be, calling for Bradley Barton to be retried on a charge of first-degree murder, and there was an 80-page scathing reason for that. So then Barton's lawyer took issue with the appeal, and he applied to the Supreme Court, saying, let's just skip going back to Queen's Bench. We'd rather go to the highest court in the land. So this is a bit of a win for Bradley Barton, really.
Part of the reason for the retrial was the judge's instructions to the jury. Can you explain what the issue was there?
Yeah. So the appeal court had pointed out that there was numerous mistakes in the charge to the jury, specifically to do with sexual assault and consent. So for people who may not know, Cindy Gladue died of a horrific injury to her vagina, which Barton told the court he did. He took responsibility for that, but it was said it was in the context of consensual rough sex that he had paid her for. She was a sex worker. The jury seemed to take from that it was as simple as saying, oh, if she consented to it, it's not his fault. And the judge had, the onus was on the judge to explain that there's much more involved, and there's intricacies of the justice system that surround consent, sexual assaults. When can a person consent? Cindy's blood alcohol content at the time of her death was near fatal. So could you consent to anything at that point? If you consent to do something, does that mean you can consent to die by it? I mean, there was a lot of things that weren't explained. So this is now in the hands of the highest court in the land, and it's certainly something that advocates and family members of Cindy Gladue would be happy to see how this is going to turn out. I think they're just going to be happy at this point that it's reached this level.
Melissa, thanks for taking some time to speak with us about this.
Thank you very much for having me.